Hello, my dear Emily. How are you doing, girl? So nice to be in your presence today. So thankful that I am alive. So thankful that you are still alive. We each have this amazing gift of our aliveness that we get to share with one another every day. And it really is a miracle. The fact that we are living, breathing beings that feel and think and can be creative and strong. Isn't it wonderful? And I'm so happy to share this gift of aliveness with you. Yes, we did it. Really, that is all there is to celebrate. The awe, the transcendent awe of being alive in the moment. What else is there? You know, we have the best of what there could ever be just by being alive in the moment. So I'm so happy to share this aliveness with you in the moment right now. So today is the 27th of April, 2019. And wow, April is almost done and over with. Can you believe it? Oh, wow. It's amazing. It's kind of funny. I know as a kid, it may seem to you that time just drags, just passes so slowly. But for me as an adult, I've got the benefit of experience. I've got almost 50 years under my belt. And time for me, at least from my perspective, is just so fleeting. How I wish to have a young brain when, I remember myself, these long, luxurious summers that never end, these just, heady and complex life that I used to live that just seemed to go on and on forever. What a luxury, the luxury of time. Today, it's as if for me, I see just days go by in a flash, minutes and hours pass by as if, in a blink. Now, I have done some research about it. There have been articles, scientists have talked about how brains are different, young brains versus old brains when it comes to accounting for time. And I think I've heard something along the lines of that older brains, they they sort of tick along at a slower pace, slightly slower pace. We're noticing less as time goes by, thinking less as time goes by. And because our brains are slower, there were acknowledgments. We got fewer acknowledgments, say, for every minute of time. It just appears that time is going faster. And it's just the result of an aging brain. So, but really, we are inhabiting the same amount of, say, experienced time in every minute. I mean, certainly, but it's just that acknowledgement in older brains just doesn't happen as frequently. Anyway, um, I'm not the oldest man alive, so thankfully, I do get to experience the just sort of the abundance of time every once in a while, and and especially when sort of I'm grounded in the moment, I think I get to experience that luxury of time as it passes by slowly. I'm reminded of the song "Row, Row, Row Your Boat Gently Down the Stream." What a beautiful parable. Anyway, uh, I just want to say, yeah, it's the end of April. Last week was phenomenal. We had Easter Sunday happening, and I might have mentioned that I went down to San Luis Obispo to Apple Farm Restaurant and Inn, walked around the grounds, took a look at the old mill. They've got a water wheel there, and I took some photographs. And I'm contemplating adding that to the 3-minute movie that I provide every week. We'll see whether I think those pictures are up to snuff to share, but I have really been enjoying the flowers. The flowers in people's yards, the flowers beside the road, flowers in the median of the road, flowers beside the sidewalk, flowers in buildings and among buildings. I'm just really looking at plants lately. This spring, with all the winter rains, has caused just an amazing celebration, just basically just a whole symphony of flowers blooming all over the place. And, there's really nothing more beautiful than California in bloom. And I have friends who have like apple trees and lemon trees in their backyards and in their front yards, plum trees and orange trees, and they're bursting with fruit right now. They're still rather young, unripened fruit, but boy, you can definitely see the bounty that's going to be happening earlier this season as these trees begin to sort of release their bountiful fruit. And so I can imagine that the animals are just they're probably already feasting on all the fruit that's coming off all the trees, all the seeds and leaves. So there's a lot of happy creatures scampering along the surface of the earth right now in the forests and on the mesa and on the hills and in the valleys. So I'm really happy for all those animals. Those animals have really struggled, now that I think about it, through like 5 years of California drought. And, finally we're getting a really nice, regular downpour of water and rain. And boy, so happy to see all of the young, beautiful animals sort of scurrying about and enjoying the feast of vegetation and plant life for them to feast upon. So pretty wonderful. I had a really fantastic experience this week. 3 days I went to the Cal Poly CubeSat Developers Workshop at the what was it, the Cal Poly Performing Arts Center, the PAC. Man, I had such a good time talking with all of my co-workers and people in the field of space, engineers, physicists, just creatives of all kind, inventors, entrepreneurs, students who are passionate about space and technology and the future. I mean, I really had a fantastic time, collaborating and brainstorming with these people, talking about what they're passionate about, what they're interested about, what they're excited about in their lives as builders of the next generation of spacecraft. I mean, man, I had such a fun time hanging around all these young scientists. Oh man, there's nothing that really makes my heart glow more than, say, a young, passionate scientist who loves the scientific method and things like that. I mean, I guess the only thing that sort of compares to that is just a person who's just focused on their vision of creativity and creative expression through, I don't know, any means, whether it be poetry or writing or video or music. I don't know. I just, it's that sort of abundant, creative, sort of, I don't know. It's sort of like a generative. Generative. That's right. I love the generative, productive expression that, you know, I like just to be around people like that and that kind of energy. And people who are, saying continuously, look at this, look at that, look what I'm doing. I love that. Anyway, so I had a really fantastic week, learning so many new things about CubeSats that I just did not know before. I mean, it's kind of surprising to me, the things that I learn. I'm so happy that I have the ability to learn new things. I've devoted my life to it. And I love getting these new perspectives and learning new things and learning about new equipment and new technology and new techniques and new ideas. Anyway, so I have come off today being, superbly motivated and inspired by what I've seen the last few days, and just happy to be able to witness it, just being grateful to witness it all around me. And so anyway, so had a great time this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, hanging out at Cal Poly with the Cal Poly students, visiting some of the stores that they've got there. They've got the craft store. Oh my gosh, if you could see this craft store, there's this crafting workshop that's at Cal Poly for the college students. And, in it, there are students who are working with pottery and clay and drawing, and they're also doing like arts and crafts, working with wood, and there's some who are shaping surfboards, and there are people who are working on bicycles to repair bicycles. I mean, it's this incredibly creative nexus on Cal Poly campus, and I didn't even know it existed until I guess it was Tuesday of this week, and so happy I got to visit it and look at all those kids just enjoying doing arts and crafts together in a group, in a supportive environment where there are instructors and there's equipment and space and time. I don't know. Actually, the whole place kind of reminded me of you. Because I remember as a kid, you were totally into arts and crafts. I don't know if you still are into arts and crafts, but I mean, I just sort of felt in that craft store this sense of like, my daughter would love being here amongst all these creative and artistic people doing amazing things, like working with glass blowing, working with ceramics. I mean, come on, this is good stuff here. And I don't know, it just seemed really a neat place to have classes and learn about all kinds of, producing all kinds of artwork. Anyway, I thought that was awesome. We need one of those on our campus at Vandenberg. I guess we've got one. We've got a couple. I guess we do. Like, we've got like a frame shop, and we've got an auto repair shop on base. I haven't really been to either one of those places, but well, actually I've been to maybe them once or twice, but I don't know. It's just kind of not the same. I love that educational environment. Interestingly enough, I did not go into the library on the Santa Cal Poly campus. I'll have to do that. I'm kind of a library nerd. You'd think I would have gone into the library. That library, I don't know. I felt a little intimidated by it. It's made out of these concrete slabs. I don't know. It's like they just slapped it all together. I'll have to go and visit it. You can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a library by its facade. That's right. I'll have to go check it out. So yeah, I went to the CubeSat workshop, and then after that, had an amazing time with the CubeSat college engineering college students. We went and enjoyed a bonfire at Avila Beach. Had so much fun. We played spike ball. We sung songs around the campfire. We had s'mores, graham crackers, marshmallows, and Hershey's chocolate. Oh man, come on. It does not get any better. And not only that, not only was that evening perfect in that way, but it was also quite warm. And because it was summertime, the sun was out for a lot of the time we were there. So we had really good lighting. We had s'mores, and then I learned about spike ball. I don't know, have you ever heard of this spike ball game? Essentially, it's like this trampoline in the center of a circle of people who, and what happens is you take the ball, it's like a small plastic ball about yay big, and you sort of spike it like a volleyball, but you spike it down onto the net of the trampoline, and the ball bounces to an opponent, and they slap it down. They hit the ball back down onto the trampoline, and you alternate as the teams hit, toss their ball down onto the trampoline. It's kind of like a mix between volleyball and basketball. Very interesting game. I actually like it. I think I might like it more than volleyball itself. I love volleyball, but there's a problem with volleyball. You need like at least 6 people to play. At least 6 people to play it. And this game, spike ball, you could easily play with 4 people. You could probably even play it with 2 or 3 people. So that's great. With volleyball, it's not so easy to play it with 2 or 3 people. 3 people maybe if you're just sort of volleying the ball, between the 3 of you without a net. Anyway, I really like this spike ball idea, and maybe I'll send you a website that relates to the game, and you can check it out. It was the first time I've played. Indeed, I think it was the very first time that I'd even seen the game, which is saying something. So that's pretty impressive. I'm always looking for new things to do at the beach, right? And this spike ball might be it. There's kicking a soccer ball around the beach. There's tossing, say, a baseball. And there's tossing a frisbee. You could always swim in the beach, go bodyboarding, go surfing, go paddleboarding. Stand-up paddleboarding is what I mean. I'm always looking for something to do at the beach. For too many times, I think, in the past, I've been to the beach, wanted to enjoy my time at the beach, but just have had nothing to do there. Yeah, I'd like to get better at my beach-going skills. This summer, I'm going to get an opportunity to do that, maybe. I have been thinking, honestly, about taking surfing lessons. If I could do like stand-up paddleboard and surfing this year, that would be an amazing year. In fact, I could do that this weekend. So I don't think I will, because this weekend is sort of a recovery weekend. I had a big week last weekend, a big week last week, and a big weekend last weekend. So I'm just going to keep it cool. Now, today, I think the Strawberry Festival in Santa Maria at the Santa Maria Convention Center is going on. And so, if I get restless, that's always something I can keep in my back pocket and do if I wanted to. That reminds me, there is a roller skating rink near the convention center. And I remember you telling me one time that, you and your mom used to go and do some roller skating. I think you've been with some friends. I would totally be up for going to the roller skating rink and renting some roller skates and roller skating out there. I would totally be up to that. If you ever have any interest or desire to go do some roller skating, call on me. That's right. So today I have got as a theme for today's video, what childhood accident stands out in your mind? And so I grew up in a family of 6 kids. I was one of 6, the eldest kid. And so I have a really deep memory of all the injuries that have taken place among my brothers and sisters. I mean, I have a really deep memory because I was old enough to observe all of them. And all the times that my brothers and sister went to the hospital, the emergency room, to get stitches. So here's the facts. As a kid, boys were pretty rambunctious. I know us as kids were pretty rambunctious. We were always hurting ourselves because we were just always throwing our bodies around on sharp objects and throwing them off of ledges, throwing our bodies off of bicycles. And, that's just what young boys did back then. We spent a lot of time outdoors, and we knocked our bodies against all kinds of things, against the ground. Most of the time against the ground, and against fences and walls and against our bikes and stuff like that. So we were always knocking our bodies against stuff. So I'm going to relate to you a few of the injuries that took place just for fun as I reminisce about the injuries. Okay, so there's so many of them. Okay, so there was one instance. My brother Carlo, he was just a baby. Our family was in church in the parking lot in Taos, New Mexico. And first of all these accidents were completely tragic. And the only I feel sorry relating them because I can't give you the whole story because the story is complex and stuff like that. But there was one instance where we had a van and my brother was in a car seat, and I think he fell out of the car seat, and the car door was open, and I think he literally fell down onto the parking lot. Oh my gosh, such a tragedy. He was totally okay though. So, these kids bounced back. I can't believe it. No hospital, no stitches, no nothing. The kids survived. Poor Carlo. Oh my gosh. I love my brother Carlo so much. Carlo was the brother who died of cancer when he was 6. Another injury that really pops out in my mind. Poor Carlo. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is a video about tragic stories. So here's one. We came home from church. Here's the thing. My family always went to church all the time, 5 days a week. We were in church, okay? So most of my stories are about going to church, in church, leaving church, coming home from church. Okay, so that's just what it is. That was just my youth. So we were coming home from church one day, and we were all streaming out of the car. And of course, I was in my fine clothes. And we were behind the house in Taos. That's where we parked the car. And I just happened to pick up a lead pipe. No, it wasn't lead. It was just a steel pipe, small diameter. I'd guess it was like about 1-inch steel diameter pipe. And I began to swing it around. I think it was about 3 feet long. Yeah, about 3 feet long. And I was swinging it like a baseball bat because I was hitting rocks. Don't ask me why I wanted to do this as soon as we got out of the car. Oh my gosh. So here's a terrible tragedy. So my brother Carlo walks around. I guess he wants to play or something. But I swing this steel pipe. Like I mentioned, it's probably a 1/2-inch diameter pipe. Anyway, I ping him right in the noggin, right here in the front of the head, right on his forehead. Oh my gosh. It was a hard hit too. Anyway, he did end up getting stitches. He's okay in the end, but um, I felt so bad about having struck my brother like that with a bat accidentally. I was just casually swinging my bat. So tragic. It wasn't funny at all. It was, in fact, quite scary. Anyway, I retreated into my bedroom crying like so sad about what had happened. My brother did go to the hospital, get stitches. He was all right, but I don't know. I still feel really, really bad. On a scale from 1 to 10 about how bad I feel, it was a 10. I mean, I feel so guilty and sad. I was about maybe 12, 14 years old. He was about 12, 13 years old when that happened. So my judgment was not very good for a young boy. Anyway, let's see what else. There was another instance. I might have been like 7, 8 years old. My brother Marcos and I, we were running through the house here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was a beautiful house that we had, and it had a loop around it in the sense that through the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, the kitchen, dining room, living room, it's all connected in a path, and there was basically a door that opened and closed. And anyway, we were playing chase, right? We were playing tag, Marcos and I, and as we were running through the house, I ran through the door and slammed it shut because I didn't want my brother to catch up to me and tag me. Anyway, my brother happened to sort of lunge for the door, and I guess maybe try to prevent the door from closing. And anyway, his thumb gets caught in the door jamb as the door shuts, literally chops off the top half of his thumb. Now he's just a boy. He's probably about 6 or 7 years old, and the top of his thumb is really just hanging by the skin. Anyway, long story short, he gets stitches, and the top of his thumb gets put back onto his thumb, stitch across. He has this big old cast on his thumb. Anyway, in the end, he's totally okay. He still has a thumb, and it's a full functional thumb. But my goodness, that was another tragedy, another set of stitches that my brother had to get. Now, you might have noticed that the last 2 stories involved stitches and also involved me sort of assaulting my younger brothers. You know, I'm remembering these stories because they were part of my story. I'm sure there were other stories. What other things? What other tragic accidents happened? Oh my gosh. Well, there was one instance where my brother Enrico stepped on a nail. So my dad is a general building contractor. He builds homes, and occasionally we would take tours through his homes. And he was building a home in Albuquerque, and he brought us to the work site. And kids at work sites. I guess we were relatively calm, but my brother Enrico did step on a nail that was sort of sitting straight up on the concrete pad, and the nail went right through the bottom of his foot into that muscle that's basically the bottom muscle of your foot. And so he had this puncture wound at the bottom of his foot. He, of course, is okay, but I remember it being a problem. I don't know if he specifically went to the hospital for that, but he might have. There's another injury. Of course, there's a ton of injuries. My brother and Enrico were sort of being rambunctious and fighting, and this was also on one of my dad's construction sites, one of the work sites. I think I might have only been like 11 or 12 years old, and he was like 10. Anyway, I took a handful of sawdust and I threw it into his face. Not a good idea, not bright. But anyway, so the sawdust went into his eyes, and oh, poor guy. Oh, so much pain and crying, especially for like an 8-year-old, right? Anyway, eventually he got the sawdust out of his eyes and he was okay. But that was another injury that happened. Any other injuries that happened to us as when we were kids? All kinds. I mean, they always happened. They were a big part of growing up, these injuries. Well, there was one instance when my brother Marcos and I were sort of chasing and being rambunctious in Taos, New Mexico. And we were running around out in the fields, and we were running around an anthill that was pretty sizable. It was, I don't know if you've ever seen like a big anthill. This was a big anthill. And so we spotted it, and we were running and playing around the anthill and jumping over the anthill and running around the anthill. And we were chasing each other. And, well, just so happened that one of us, that my brother Marcos, fell onto the anthill, and I might have pushed him a little bit onto the anthill. And of course, he fell onto the anthill, and all the ants got pretty agitated and began to crawl all over him, and then began to bite him. And of course, he was crying out, and I sought to help him out, and I picked him up off the anthill to rescue him from the anthill. And of course, the ants that were on him began to get on me and then began to sting me. And so here, my brother and I are just wailing in pain. We're both covered in red ants, which is stinging our skin. And I am carrying my brother, who is essentially hysterical by now, and I carry him to the house, which was like 100 feet away. And Mom sees her two kids. At the time, I might have been like 13 years old, and he was probably like 10 years old. And so she puts us both in the bathtub with Campho-Phenique and to sort of soothe the ant bites that are all over our bodies. It's basically, I don't know, kids injuring themselves. Anyway, I'm perfectly fine. He's perfectly fine right now. And I mean, the ants bit us, and it was painful for a while, but I think we got a lot of ant bites. I'm sure we each had either, I would say 10 to 15 bites might have been conservative, because we had bites all over our bodies, like all through the trunks of our bodies and the legs and the arms of our bodies. Yeah. So more injuries that I can tell you about. Let's see, what other injuries, what childhood accidents exist? I think those are the big ones, really. Those are the big. Oh, here's another set. There's always more injuries. So me and my brother Marcos were hanging out at the old TG&Y. TG&Y is an old nickel and dime store, sort of an old dime store, I should say. There used to be, it's sort of like the dollar stores. The dollar stores of yesteryear, although the TG&Ys were a higher class dime store than just a dollar store. In fact, it's basically a Walmart, but a very small scale Walmart, very small scale Walmart. It's sort of like a CVS. That's kind of what a TG&Y was. TG&Y was like a CVS. Well, anyway, my brother and I was probably about 14 years old. My brother was probably about 11. We were walking through the TG&Y aisles, and lo and behold, I spotted the electric knives. These were reciprocating knives that people use to carve turkeys. And so I thought I'd play a joke on my brother, and I pretended to sort of, what I did is I sort of put a blade like 3 inches above his arm. And I said, "Gotcha," or something like that. And he proceeded to pull his arm away from under the blade. But sadly, he sort of went like this. And so even though the blade was above his arm, he sort of, he went like that. And so the knife sort of dug kind of a cut into basically this part of his arm right here. Wow. So his arm was here or something like that. And then I put the blade here and he goes, whoa, as he pulls away. Anyway, that was unsightly. Anyway, he's perfectly fine and healthy now today, but that was not a good joke. You know, this whole horseplay, roughhousing thing, thankfully I've grown out of it. In fact, I've actually today as an adult, I've grown to dislike horseplay in particular. And it's kind of funny how what difference there is between, say, an adult Miguel and a 14-year-old Miguel or an 11-year-old Miguel when it comes to horseplay. Horseplay, you have to remember that was pretty much all we did as kids, you know. That was the whole meaning and purpose of our lives, was to find ways to have fun with brothers. And I can't tell you how many wrestle fights I was in when I was a kid. A lot. And it's just what we did, man, when we were kids. That's just how we related to one another. Anyway, so are there any other childhood accidents that stand out in my mind? Well, there was one childhood accident. Again, it involved chasing. So me and my brother were at church. I was fairly young. I think I might have been like 7 years old. My other brother was like 5. He still had his childhood teeth in. He hadn't, all of his teeth hadn't come in. All of his adult teeth hadn't come in. So we were literally running in church. You know, that's what 11-year-olds do. 11-year-olds run in church, chasing each other. I forget who was chasing who, but there was some construction going on in the church, some renovation, modification. It was the carpet, right? Some of the carpet was pulled up, pulled out, cut away, and there was a concrete slab underneath the carpet, I think. Anyway, my brother tripped on some wrinkle in the carpet and something like that. Anyway, he came down face down onto the floor. I think he came down onto the concrete slab, and he his tooth came out. He hit his tooth on the ground and his tooth popped out. And of course it was bloody. It was a mess. I think he might have gone to the doctor. Of course, it was a baby tooth, so he was without a tooth for a while. And Angelo is perfectly okay today. He's got all of his front teeth. But yeah, I distinctly remember that accident, that childhood accident that happened. I think we were playing tag or chase or something, and he tripped, and his tooth popped out. Interestingly enough, my family does have a history of knocking out teeth. My dad, when he was a boy, no, I did not see this because I wasn't alive. But when my dad was a boy, he was playing with BB guns with his friends. And fact is, back then, kids shot BBs at each other from a distance. And some kid shot dad in the face, hit his tooth, knocked his tooth out with the BB. And in fact, to this day, my dad has sort of a false tooth arrangement that he has in his mouth, that he keeps in his mouth to provide him a full set of teeth. So, in fact, I can admit, when I was a kid, I was out at my cousin Steven's house, in his backyard, and we were playing chase, and we were shooting BB guns at each other without any eye protection or anything. And I was probably around 14, 15 years old. Was I even that old? I might have been 14 years old. And he was probably 13 or 14 years old. Why did we do such a reckless thing? I have no idea. You know, today people are more risk adverse than they were when I was growing up. And you know what? I think most of the time I rode my bicycle, I did not have a helmet on. In fact, when I was a youth, kids didn't even wear seatbelts. There was no such thing as seatbelts when I was a youth. Or maybe there was, but people didn't wear them. I don't know when I started wearing seatbelts. I think I probably only started wearing seatbelts when I hit high school. That's probably the first time when I started wearing seatbelts. But before that, no seatbelts. I might have even gone through a big chunk of my life in high school without wearing seatbelts. It was just the way it was. It was a different time. So anyway, right there is a rundown of a lot of the incidents and accidents that happened to me and to my brothers and sisters and father when we were kids. Now I actually hadn't related any stories about my sister being injured. Let me think if I can remember any story about my sister, Barbriana Sofia Trujillo, being injured. So here's the thing. My sister came along rather late, right? The big boys, the three big boys, which I was the eldest, that is Miguel, Enrico, and Marcos. The three big boys, that was the rambunctious crowd. And then there was the next set of three kids, which was Angelo, Carlo, and Barbriana. Angelo, Carlo, and Barbriana lived lives that were a lot more tame than the big boys, the big three. And the big boys, us three were in like high school, and I was graduating high school and going to college. And so my focus was not on being rambunctious. I was already really interested in studying and in schoolwork and focused on reading and learning. And I just was not rambunctious when I reached my high school years. And so the rambunctiousness in the house really went down. The rambunctious levels went down when the last three siblings came around. And so I actually don't remember any serious injuries that happened to my sister Barbriana. Oh, except one. One has just come to mind. Okay. So at the time, I was like a senior in high school, maybe a junior in high school. And we were living at 99 Calle Playa del Sol, which is a condo complex in Albuquerque, New Mexico, along Academy Road. And it was 4th of July, and my sister Barbie was sitting around, and we were doing sparklers in the backyard. And I think my dad was there, and we had just had some little fireworks, just some little crack and bang fireworks, really tiny stuff, right? A lot of safe and sane. These fireworks were not safe and sane, really, but they were small time compared to other fireworks. Anyway, Mom had gotten some sparklers. They come in boxes. They're basically on sticks, and you light them, and they. Anyway, my sister had a sparkler, and she had lit it, and she was sitting down, and it fell out of her hands. It just slipped out of her hand and into her lap. And so the sparkler, how old was she? I'm guessing she was like 10, 9, 10, 11, something like that. Maybe less. Maybe she was like 6 or 7. She was a young kid. And anyway, the sparkler fell into her lap, and she has these beautiful brown legs, right? Beautiful light brown skin color. And the sparkler went down into her lap and just started tearing into her skin, right? With all the hot flares that from the sparkler, and her skin was just red, and the upper layer with the melatonin had peeled off, and beneath there was this sort of this hot pink layer of skin, and it was just looked terrible. Poor girl. I think she's completely healed from it. I think her skin looks entirely normal now. But the poor girl, I remember her just wailing as everyone was scattering and trying to help her soothe the heat of her burns, and getting like hot water, cold water on her burns, on her legs. And anyway, poor Barbie. I really need to ask her, in fact, how that all ended up. She's a nurse now. She's a professional nurse. She's like an RN, and she is an RN. And so I'm kind of curious what her view of that whole scenario was, because it was pretty traumatic just to watch from a distance. My sister in that kind of upset. And I don't think it had any lasting scarring effects on her, but I do want to check her out. I want to check on her. I think I'll have to ask her about, what her recovery was like, and whether it was a big deal, and how she handles fireworks today, whether she has fireworkophobia or something. Anyway, so yeah, that was one injury that my sister Barbriana sustained. So let's see what else. Oh, there's always more injuries. There was one time when my dad was riding a horse, and he got thrown from the horse. I never really heard that he was injured in any particular way after falling off the horse. I have a feeling he was feeling pretty sore. I mean, nobody takes like an 8 or 9 foot fall. Maybe it was like a 7 or 8 foot fall. It was easily a good maybe 6 or 7 foot fall onto the ground beside a horse. It's not easy to shake off such a fall. So, in fact, I might want to have to ask Dad about whether he got injured falling from that horse when that horse threw him. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. I was with my family for a good 20 years, and there were 6 kids, and we were all out in the country, and people are bound to get hurt. People are bound to get injured, particularly when young kids are involved. So anyway, that's the story. All the injuries. And you know what? That doesn't even cover all the injuries. I mean, I haven't even covered all of my scars that I've got. And I've already told the story about the knife to my cheek as I fell off the counter on my high chair, and the knife went into my cheek. There are other injuries. Like I've got, look at this. You probably can't see it, but there's a scar that runs. It's a white scar. It's a white scar that runs from here to here. And it used to run all the way down my arm. You see, when I was a boy, I would, in Taos, it was an agricultural society. Agricultural had farmers. They were growing alfalfa and other crops to care for animals and things like that. And so there were lots of fields, agricultural fields. And as a boy, what I would do is I would go on these long treks, around town and on the outskirts of town. And I would crawl through the fences. And these fences these were barbed wire fences. And so there literally were barbs. And sometimes, even as a kid, as you crawl through the barbed wire fence, I remember crawling. Basically what you do is you sort of open the fence a little bit, and then you kick your leg over, and then you kick your body over, and then you allow the fence wires to come closer together, and then you sort of pull your arm out. Well, that's what I did. But when I pulled my arm out, it scraped against barb in the barbed wire fence, and when it did that, it sort of really went deep into my arm. So deep an injury it caused that it's scarified. Right. So it was a pretty deep injury I sustained, a pretty deep cut that I sustained from the barb. And in fact, I probably have scars in places I don't know about because of all those barbs. I don't know. It's just how farmers protected their land lines, property lines. And then I have another injury where I've got let's see, which thumb is it? Boy, I can't even tell anymore. I think it's this thumb. So when I was a boy, like 3 or 4 years old, my dad bought me a carpentry kit that had like a real wrench, a real screwdriver, a real saw, and a real hammer. Right? With it came along with a toolkit, a toolbox. Right? Just for kids, but it was made of like real low quality metal, and you could really cut on it, and so cut with it, or really bang in nails with it. My dad was a builder, right? So of course my dad had scraps of wood just lying around in piles here and there. I'm not sure if he was a building contractor at that point in time. I think he was probably like a janitor, or maybe a refrigeration technician. But anyway, I remember being on top of a slide on our swing set at home, and that's right. I was on the slide, and I was cutting with my saw a piece of wood, and the saw sort of skipped in the wood right onto my thumb, and I sort of went over my thumb with the blade of the metal saw, and I've got this. It's kind of funny. I actually do not see the scar. What happened? Maybe it's there. It's so slight now. I wonder why that is. Well, you have to remember that this injury occurred when I was like 4 years old. It's probably the worst, earliest injury I've ever had. The earliest injury I've ever had at the worst. And I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I'm really surprised that I could see it. I mean, this is like a 50-year-old injury. Well, maybe like a 45-year-old injury. So to have a mark on my hand from this 45-year-old injury is pretty remarkable. So anyway, that's a list of some of the injuries that have occurred throughout my family over the years, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about them. I kind of enjoyed telling the story of them. Now, the stories I mentioned were, summaries, right? They were brief stories, and they were not as accurate as they could be, because I wanted to get through a lot of stories of injuries. And if you ever have an interest in learning more about any one of these stories, I would be happy to tell you about the story in more detail and give you more of a sense of the motivations about what happened and when and why. But I hope you get a sense too about just how dangerous it is to grow up with a group of rambunctious brothers. And I was thinking that I have a feeling that perhaps, Emily, you have a lot fewer injuries because you have very few people to inflict injury upon you, physical harm upon you. And that's good and bad to some extent too, because it's nice to have those experiences where, you get thrown around a little bit. I think that there is some degree of resilience that can be learned from such experiences. Anyway, I hope you have a fantastic day today. For me, what is today? Today is Saturday, the 27th of April. Like I mentioned, it's a recovery day, so I'm just going to be doing stuff around the house, getting some laundry done, going grocery shopping, cleaning the house. I'm going to be just gathering supplies for next week. I'm also going to be daydreaming about my next dental appointment so that I can have my braces taken off in about a week and a half maybe. And so definitely looking forward to that happening. And, I hope you're doing well. I hope things are going well for you. I hope school's going well. I know the semester's about to wrap up. Soon you'll be thinking about final exams and you'll be graduating from your first year of high school. I'm kind of curious about how it went. What is your reaction to your first year of high school? Was it what you expect? I remember when you graduated from middle school, I think you called it, what was it? Miserable middle school. Oh my gosh, how funny. And I'm kind of curious as to what your first year of high school was like. I have a feeling that it was just really eye-opening in a lot of ways. I have a feeling that, there's so many things to explore and experience. I know Cabrillo High School has greenhouses, they've got an aquarium, they've got a robotics program. They've got a lot of resources, new resources for you to learn about. And of course, there are probably relationships, kids and what they're doing. And, I'm sure there's like computers, and I'm curious about, how you relate to computers and how that relates to your life, and, what you are enjoying about the internet, and what books you're enjoying reading, and what music you're enjoying right now listening to. There's just so much just wonderful material that you're exposed to now. I have a feeling that you live in a beautiful house and you've got this wonderful country around you, this landscape. You live in the midst of the Burton Mesa Reserve, and as a person in track and field, you're probably running a lot over the trails, over the hills and dales of the Burton Mesa Ecological Reserve. And I can only imagine just how wonderful an experience that is. And what a neat place to get a little bit of solitude and to go hiking around in. I have a feeling that, you're taking advantage of that when you walk your dog, say, and just enjoying just enjoying nature and appreciating what it has to offer you in terms of your connection to nature and, peace and, the meditative elements of being out in nature and observing landscape and trees and plants and the flora and fauna of the area. So, I'm glad to have a sense that at least you might be enjoying the outdoors. And, I'm always interested in just being a part of your life. And I want to invite you into my life. You're welcome to participate in it in whatever capacity you wish, for whatever duration you wish, at any time you wish. Mi casa, su casa. And yeah, I'm just open and available for whatever serves your needs. And so I'll continue to do my best to guess what your needs are. And anyway, always looking forward to receiving feedback about how I'm doing and, how the world is for you, right? Anyway, I love you very much. I am 100% committed to our relationship, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I hope that if you are studying for exams, that you're able to find the time and energy and attention to do so. I love you very much, baby. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.